What is up, everybody? Welcome to NFTs in the Arena with your hosts, Mike and John. And today we have a very special guest and a friend of mine. It's actually South African, based here in LA with me. His name is David Lindeque. David is the director of product for Orbit Partners, which is a software engineering and product design company based here in Los Angeles. Dave, welcome. How you doing, mate?
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, John. Good to see you guys. Good to chat with you guys.
Happening?
And
John, what's up? So, just as we've been doing in the last few episodes, we dive deep into the NFT space and understand what's going on in the NFT world, whether it's in sport as well as in the crypto world. And the reason why we've brought Dave on is more so that he's just an all-out good guy and very much in this tech space. But Dave was one of the first guys I was introduced to, at least with regards to NFTs, where he actually did an NFT collection for South African cricket star Dale Steyn. And it's one of the things that I actually started learning about NFTs by virtue of seeing the design in which Dave had done with Orbit Partners. So Dave, just I think kicking off and going from the outset, with regards to the NFT collection you did at Dale Steyn, can you just take us through how it came about? And I mean, I would have assumed that at the time that you actually were posed to do this project, that was something that was definitely new to you and Orbit Partners.
yeah, so actually, it was interesting how it came to be. So I'm very good friends with someone who was one of his asset managers. So the asset managers had an interest in NFTs, and they were looking for someone who could assist with 3D design. And one of the platforms we have at Orbit that we offer is 3D design and rendering. So we had done a little bit of work for City of Los Angeles and Walmart, but that was predominantly like product design that was industry specific, nothing with this abstract Web3 kind of vibe. So we're tasked to then come on board and make these NFTs. So there were 4 NFTs, 3 different cards, and then 1 ball. It was a super interesting product. Fortunately, with that, the team was larger than just simply us. We contributed to the visual assets and to the, all the design and the website, etc., for that drop. But it was actually led and guided by people who had a bit more experience in the space. So for us, it was daunting, but not like something that we were completely in the blind. At least we had someone to assist with us. And also, it's great that we could just do a limited bit of work, like we just simply did the visual, while then being able to learn about this whole drop and the NFT space, for future reference. So, yeah.
Did the drop happen on OpenSea?
Yeah. So it was, I would say it was also interesting when they decided to do it. They were quite on trend and following like latest developments, in the space. And I think that maybe it was timed a little too early. So, I think that timing was everything with this NFT space over the last like 6 to 9 months. And then, I feel like it was, a decent project, but very, very interesting at least. Yeah.
How does
what I'd say is, sorry, John, and I think this will go into your next question. And the reason why I ask this is just going to tee you up as well. That like, and this is just being quite blank because we just talk open here. Is that how successful was that collection? Because I know after speaking to you, you believe it could have potentially done better. So, John, I don't know if you had a particular question.
No. That's actually the question I kind of wanted to ask, but obviously inherently directed at Dale. How did he feel about it?
So I would say that he was happy with the outcome. I mean, we had got a lot of feedback from him during it, and I think we'd come to a product that we'd all felt was a decent job. What I feel that could maybe have done better, we could have definitely, I guess, built a little bit more of a community before the drop.
Okay.
So that was the only key thing that we had learned. Was prior to that, there was like a lot of traditional kind of pushing of it. So social media, a little bit of the other. So predominantly social media kind of to get this hype. But what I've seen is with the best NFT drops, you actually have to have that Discord channel and server going where you're building hype, you're building community, you have a wait list, you have benefits for early people. So I think that was a good learning.
Amazing.
But yeah.
So I mean, like that's something that we always speak about, John, is community and the importance of community. And like I said, Dave, like John and I have also spoken about times of, and you and I have also probably had this conversation outside of this, is that the whole Bored Ape Yacht Club and the whole movement to buy NFTs and the amount of money that was thrown at this. And there's been times where John and I actually saw beyond this whole hype and actually why this is going to be more valuable than what meets the eye right now. It's not the actual digital asset, it's the community in which they're actually invoking and bringing together a bunch of guys that have obviously a significant amount of wealth to dispose on something that is incredibly high risk and high reward. And I think these kind of communities is going to be almost like a boys club where to get in is very difficult, but the opportunities and the network that you can actually leverage from that would be something that I think a lot of people that actually are in belief of this project would actually experience.
Yeah, I agree. But I think then the key and the onus goes on those community leaders to actually build that community. It's not simply enough to offer a collection that's high priced and just simply because there's like 98 other people's wallets who own these things, that there's some sort of community. It actually has to be community. You actually have to be talking in a space. You know, someone needs to be moderating this, putting events together. So like I give credit to Yuga Labs, obviously with Bored Ape. They've recently been doing this other side metaverse demos. And there's been thousands of people coming together on this like browser-based game. You should go Google it. Very cool. And it looks like kind of like Fortnite. And so they're using a UK group called Improbable, who does a lot of this stuff in design and defense. So I guess they kind of hacked that like growth rate and had the money to just simply buy something that Improbable had basically off the shelf, this kind of latency-free, browser-based mega world. But very cool. So at least they're starting to do events and progression and innovation and stuff. But a lot of these other collections, other than a Discord server and the fact that the price was high, I don't think that it warranted necessarily a community, if you know what I mean. And then we've seen a lot of those said collections, prices dropped and like not recovered. Even in like, if you remove the recent general macro drop, prior to that drop, I think a lot of these, the biggest issue with these NFTs is there's zero secondary market to sustain the demand, especially as these communities haven't matured yet. So
yeah. So look, I think there's definitely, from what I've been hearing, firstly, I want to ask, does your company handle the PR and should I say community management of these NFTs? For instance,
unfortunately
on Discord,
not.
Is it?
Yeah, that's like the golden question.
Yeah,
so many people have asked, do you know how to run a Discord server for us? So whoever can somehow find a lot of, you know, talented, knowledgeable people in the Web3 space who can actually lead these communities is going to be a great success, I think.
I believe it's the new agency for much like how agencies treated social media with Facebook, Instagram. I think this is the new wave that's coming, but it requires a more smart, intuitive individual, which is perhaps Gen Zs.
Only thing about it that like so a few friends in Cape Town actually pinged me and they said, do we know? And they were interested in doing something like this. But the thing about it is that it's not that scalable. So think about it. To manage this community successfully is an all-day affair. So that's one person moderating and running that Discord server. I would argue you could maybe run two as a full-time job. As a full-time job. So like the thing is that like, let's say you hire 5 talented people, the max number of clients is 10. And there's like, I can tell you that the demand is significantly higher than what you can actually supply for that service. So.
Well, the thing is, this is obviously like leading towards this new change, or should I say revolution in how NFTs are going to replace typical ways of how can you say, logistics and just quantifying things just generally, as like much like barcodes have done in the past. Now, with that being said, there's going to be a lot of communities developing outside of the sphere of just, for instance, JPEGs and art, like much like things that are actually sustainable, ticketing systems and all that kind of things can eventually have their own kind of communities, much like ticket companies having an Instagram page, having a follow there. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity with this change and going into Web3 and that.
You know what I find interesting what Dave said, and I think
Mm.
probably an issue that is being currently faced. And I think the only market that might spare this wave, Dave, is the sports industry. And I'll tell you why. But going to your point of where you spoke about, there's no secondary market. There's like that all that hype, and after that hype has happened, there's like no one like seeing the value in it. And that's obviously why the market is in the state it currently is, in this winter market. But like there's been numerous articles and numerous examples of how the sports industry now is going to be pioneering the space, because they now effectively see the value beyond the actual digital artwork, but more for the utility like ticketing, fan tokens, season ticket holders, what John was just saying. So I do think like the next year, like you and I versus spoken about offline, is how everything, all the rubbish will be washed away now, and the true organizations that add real value will arise now and actually innovate, because now they've weeded everyone out. But I think the one thing I wanted to bring in now is speaking to your point of managing these discords, right? It is one individual, or maybe an individual doing two discords. But now the conversation maybe you want to add to is regarding AI, artificial intelligence, where we get to the point where these chatbots that will effectively be integrated are to the point where they can converse and actually understand the market, understand the niche, because now they're going to be using these algorithms now where they feed all the data from the information that's relating to the specific Discord and NFT collection. Do you think that's something that will happen?
I think there was still a few years out. I think that the problem is not necessarily the content for the actual thread. So it wouldn't be like, I think that the computer could quickly ingest all available content pertaining to that particular project. The problem is the nuanced conversation that occurs in these threads, as well as the use of slang terms, maybe not even like particular to region, but particular to that particular thread. So there's a lot of very, very nuanced conversation. So to actually contextualize that is very difficult as a neural net. But interesting developments in the space. Actually, if you look at Google, they just recently had some issues. I'm not sure if you've seen. One of the engineers actually came out and thought that the AI that he's trained to, I think it's called Lambda, but it's basically exactly this kind of application, like neural net focused on conversational functions. And he believed that it was sentient. And that, I mean, whether, you know, like, I don't believe that, but the point being is that the fact that engineers, smart engineers at Google are getting to the point where they're believing that they might be communicating with someone, maybe that makes me a little bit more bullish than to answer your question that like maybe in the foreseeable future, we might be seeing a lot of these applications. On that same thread, I think it was like a year or two ago at Google I/O, Sundar Pichai demoed that call center, and like where Google then could call. So basically, Google could call and text and make bookings and stuff for you. That hasn't obviously come in, but Google would on your behalf phone someone, or on your behalf like accept a phone call for you and take a voice message, etc. So I think,
as your voice, though, utilizing your
no, but it would speak in and of itself. I try to find the clip for you. Very impressive. But yeah, so I mean, when we're at a point where we can integrate those kind of platforms and services with Discord, I'm not sure. But I would say like not in the foreseeable future to match the demand that's required for these communities. I think for the next few years, we're going to need humans who are knowledgeable about the Web3 space.
Definitely, even with strategy, because there's obviously a strategy to build the community, which is outside of the sphere of that interface itself. So I think that kind of conjuring up of systems are going to definitely be handled by people for a very long time. Yeah, AI definitely is going to, well, general AI is definitely going to replace redundant processes, even in social medias, etc. It's very interesting.
So, Dave, I think this is a cool pivot in the direction of the conversation now. So, I know Dave, like we can speak days about what's going on in the crypto and the news world with regards to NFTs. And you and I kind of touched on what happened with 3 Arrow Capital, right? Which is obviously this fund in which these guys from, I think they were based in Singapore, actually in bust now, having raised, I don't know how much money, Dave, But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want to take the conversation to something that's quite more humorous. So I know Dave, although he's done NFTs, he also sometimes finds it difficult to understand the value in some projects, right? Which speaks to this point, like this trust. How the hell are people investing so much money in these things, right? And it's obviously speaking to their belief in not only the individuals, the technology, but also using history or historical data as a bit of inspiration. The dot-com boom. The guys that invested there, I mean, obviously 99% of them went bust, but the guys that made it big, right? This is the hope of the guys that are investing in these funds, I would imagine. But like, what is your whole take on that whole debacle and the whole take on this industry and the amount of money that's going around?
I think that
Honestly.
I think it's a broader issue with the venture market and with the whole tech scene at the moment in the tech industry. I think these lofty valuations have to at some point be cut, but there's also still so much liquidity in the market. I know we're facing doom and gloom and we've got this global recession and inflation and all this. The only reason we have inflation is because there's so much liquidity in the market. There's so much money. There's so much money. Like the
Yeah.
problem about that is that there's so much money. So that like we've worked recently with some clients, and there's been some clients that we've actually declined to work. But there's been a common thread in the market that we've seen is just how easy it has been to raise money on not much. So these I mean, myself and my business partner, he's American, Anthony. At times we've often wondered if maybe we
Shout
are
out
the
to
ones that
Anthony. Shout out to
shout out to Anthony.
Anthony. Shout out to
Oh,
Anthony.
maybe
Great
yeah.
guy. Great guy.
Sometimes we wonder like, are we missing
But
something? Because it makes no sense to us. It makes no sense to us how much money is being applied and plowed into these markets. And the craziest thing is in the venture capital space, you know, in California, etc. These companies go and they raise on a Series A round, okay, seed round, $3 million. So they'll back a company, and then these founders will take the money and they'll ponder about what they want to do, and they'll spend money and they'll waste it. They'll throw a launch party, and they will get some consultants, and you know, a month or two later, and there's a few $100,000 that has been exhausted. So we keep witnessing these kind of events, you know, through third parties and network, and hearing about this in the startup space, and we keep wondering how these funds continue to do this. But the key result is that the valuation supported. So if they go and they put money into these, they know, as you said, 99 are going to fail. But the one success is 1,000 extra turn sometimes for them. So if you've made 99 losses and you've got 1,000 times, you 10 extra money.
Yeah.
So that's how they operate. But I mean, it's crazy how much inefficiency there is in the application of the capital and the usage of it. But then in terms of the Web3 space, I think it was also just a lot of hype. And the people saw these, like, you know, these altcoins booming. And that also, I think, led the flurry that a lot of people felt they missed out on Shiba Inu, myself included. So I think a lot of people then kind of didn't want to have that same FOMO in the NFT space. And I think that kind of mindset applied there too. So makes no sense to me, Mike.
Jono, I know you're going to have a good opinion on this.
No, look, it's yeah, I think it's a lot of it's hype, it's people with money trading, a whole bunch of things. Look, I haven't dabbled much in NFT. I'm more into building a portfolio, passive income streams, you know, on the blockchain, more than investing in JPEGs and that kind of stuff. Not to say it doesn't work, but yeah, when it comes to the reasons why and how it's fitting in with venture capitalists over that side, yeah, look, I don't have much say on how they're spending their funding and how their returns are.
Yeah, and I think, which is obviously experienced also during the dot-com boom, how fucking determined people were from the internet, right? The internet's gone bust, it's never going to be a thing again. And obviously I think this is the opinion that a lot of people that are investing in NFTs are using as their backing, but obviously it's incredibly questionable. And I mean, a lot of people probably don't hold that same sentiment. But Dave, I wanted to ask you, I mean, you're pretty much into sports and stuff like that. How do you see the utilization of NFTs in sports? Having already done an NFT with a professional athlete.
I think what would add value is, I think, the aggregation of a few drops of athletes So instead of doing your own drop where you got to do the branding and you got a unique product, etc., I think you'll start to see these like platforms where they will acquire a lot of they'll have like a top roster of athletes, and then there'll be this community where if you own one of the athletes' tokens, you'll then get access to another athlete's tokens. So that's how you can add that secondary market and that kind of utility, instead of doing, like, I would say, and I suggested also to the team that was behind the Dale Steyn, initiative, was to find additional cricket players and athletes to add to the collection and have a greater, collection of these drops, where there's some sort of utility between the tokens and the drops. Yeah, that's what I would say. But interesting, Mark, look at LeBron.com. So that's the key, is that again, secondary market for sports NFTs is difficult.
You know what was interesting? So, like, obviously you guys know we spoke about it before, but just for the audience. So today I went to an event here in Los Angeles where Gary Vaynerchuk's NFT company, VeeFriends, had hosted an event in collaboration with a sneaker retailer here in LA called Cool Kicks. And they had this whole event going on today for a couple of hours where Gary was obviously giving away one of his new books. And obviously there was something with this golden fox thing where they also hold, I think, 500 of these things to obviously for resale and now forming part of the community. But I had asked him the question with regards to NFTs, and particularly, how do you convince athletes to come onto something like Sports Finder to actually buy into this? Because last year, a lot of these athletes were doing these NFT collections and working with these brands, because these companies, or these NFT companies, were throwing large sums of money at them just to secure them. And when he said to me today, he just said to me, patience, man, time. And almost alluding to the fact that we all need to just be aware that this is going to take as much time as any new innovation happens. So if you are in it, you need to remain in it, and just to be a bit more innovative on your side. It was kind of what I took away from that. So I think what I also wanted to get to now, what I just thought about, Dave, was talking about his partner, Anthony, John. He's a crazy guy with regards to like the challenges he puts upon himself. So I know the one that he had cycled, I think, from Vegas, or tried to cycle from Vegas to LA. But tell me the story again of when he actually went to go film those immigrants crossing the border in the United States.
Hey, oh, man, I don't know what I should be saying or not.
No, but go ahead.
First, and then I'll answer.
No, so I mean, like, he was kind of telling us the story of like how there was this illegal immigrants thing happening at the border here in Mexico. I don't know how long ago it was, but he went there just to go see it because it was such a large movement, and he was filming this thing. And like, this is a guy that's obviously incredibly smart, incredibly professional, but like kind of likes to go explore these things. And what I took from that whole conversation was that we are so caught in our daily lives where this guy can go think of to do something like that, and something so amazing. And that's why, like, even today I find myself just driving around LA looking at like where we actually live, like familiarizing myself with the area. Like, I've never done that before, really, right? So, like, I've been in LA for nearly 3 years now, and I'm not really familiar with the area. And my point is, like, just doing things outside of your working sphere, and like like, I can quite easily just say on a Sunday, I'm going to sit here and work, and not actually go do that.
But that's why one thing you can say to everyone is that I phone this guy probably more than his mom phones him. You must see, John, I'll leave Mike about 5 missed calls to do stuff. I'll be like, let's go do stuff, because there's so much to do here. So I agree. This is our home now. It's time to like get out and do stuff. And
amazing.
Yeah.
Are you from Cape Town, back in SA?
I grew up in Durban, and then I was in Cape Town after school.
Amazing.
For university. Amazing. And
brilliant.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, when Dave moved over, he wasn't like really doing what he was doing. It was like, I mean, you were working for another South African, I think, right?
No, so I was involved in technology. And then when I arrived in Los Angeles, then I was consulting actually for technology, but for a South African here who was doing clothing. So there's a lot of like new innovation stuff they need to implement, IT and stuff. And then from there, then I worked at Albert, which is a digital bank. So I was senior product manager at Albert in Los Angeles. and then now working with Anthony and director of product at Orbit. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So, John, like, how would you perceive like coming to the United States? I know like it's something that I think if you had the opportunity would like to come. Like,
Yes.
what do you think is like something that wants you to make? Like, why do you want to come here? Because obviously there's some relevant hurdles in your way to get you with
For
regards
me,
to
it's
paperwork and stuff.
yeah, it's just I'm closer to individuals that I look up to, if that makes sense. And also just the sphere of individuals are a little bit more saturated that are in line with the kind of way I think. And I'm not that's obviously a presumption because I don't know the culture, I don't know, but based on conversations we've had and also just the kind of people that are immersing themselves in that space are the kind of people I want to fuck with. They're motivated, they're inspiring, and that's what I feel is lacking here is just that top end leadership. People are very, very tenacious. They've got a lot of grit, South Africans, but they don't have a lot of guidance from big mentors, big leaders. And that's what I feel like a country like the States, particular LA, has those kind of dudes and chicks. It's crazy.
I mean, Dave, like since you've been here, like with regards to your career, like, do you think obviously it was a good move for you, but I'm saying like, what do you think has happened that you never thought might have happened? Like, do you think you would have become as successful as you are now in South Africa with regards to the time frame that you have done it in?
I think, and I'll speak even and answer on your behalf, I don't think for either of us it would have been possible. I think not only is the economy like, multiple times bigger here with like significantly more opportunities, not only there's that, but also what I love about the United States is that there's this belief if you surround yourself with the right people here, they are supportive and they believe and they push. Like the one thing, Mark, you've seen is that I think that Americans are very welcoming and they're very nice to foreigners who want to work hard. So like if you come here with the right attitude, and I love the United States, I one day want to contribute and add value to the United States. And if people can sense that that's the honest truth, you can do well here because like they reach out and they help you. So I think that back home in South Africa, there's this mindset, a lot of like tall poppy syndrome, cutting down. Everyone's trying to kind of step on one another. Where in the United States, everyone's supporting one another.
Yeah.
So like here, people celebrate one another's successes. Where back home, people are so inclined with this small town syndrome to like chop at people who are striving for things and working really hard. So that's been my impression, at least moving here.
Do you think that is why countries like South Africa fall behind when it comes to innovation and technology? It's because they have this mindset. And I know, Jono, you and I have spoken about how South Africa, and then obviously, like Dave and I have been in both environments now. So, like, I would say that my opinion is much the same, man. I believe in the same sentiment that Dave has said. It's an interesting thing because you come into a country that's obviously sometimes looked at negatively by the rest of the world, but obviously living here and seeing how welcoming we have been received as foreigners has been interesting. But like, what do you think is something? Do you think that the NFT or the crypto space or Web3 will progress as fast as it should in South Africa because people have this mindset, or do you think we're kind of skewing this assumption?
I think that the progression of the space is going to be predicated on outside influence. So, for instance, big companies from the States, from Britain, from Australia. I'm just throwing spinballing here, but I do think a lot of the innovation and movement is going to come from an outside sphere, purely because, like I said, the people over there in first world places that have the funding and also just the know-how and the tenacity to push for this understanding are doing it in that kind of environment more so than in a space like this. Because over here, we are a couple of years behind. So trends, the way to make money is slightly a little delayed in terms of this new pioneer space. Like there are people, especially in Cape Town, that are developing in the Web3 domain, but not nearly as enough. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think I can definitely relate to that. And the reason why I wanted to end off on that was that we have come to the end of our thing, or the end of our thing, end of our show. I want to thank you, Dave. I think it was actually such a cool conversation. Must definitely have you on again. I want to bring Anthony on so he can come and tell his cool stories himself. And
Amazing.
yeah, and for everyone that's listening, you can go to Dave. Just tell everyone where they can find you on socials and your website.
Yeah, so our website is orbitpartners.io. And then, yeah, I'm on Instagram, Orbit's on Instagram. And yeah, we're always looking for new clients and to help people build their ideas and dreams.
No, fantastic. And again, I mean, we'll have Dave on, and I think as we grow, we'd like to bring on more content to just understand what other projects you're working on. I think that'll be pretty cool. Jono, as always, do you have any final remarks for our viewers?
Yeah. I came across a lovely movie called The Great Beauty. It's an Italian film, and it was the narrative was, primarily dedicated at keeping your roots, as an individual, especially during these times of decadence. And there's a lot of distractions and money and all that type of thing. If you can remain rooted, I think that's the main thing. Yeah, amazing.
Thank you so much. But it's something that I learned today, and it's a saying that was from Gary Vee, actually.
Yes.
And it goes like, and it surprised me the first time I've heard about this. Maybe you have. It's man has a plan, but God laughs.
Oh,
Like
wow.
essentially meaning like
Amazing.
we all have a plan, but he's just laughing at us like
it's
you
just
guys
comedy,
have no
bro.
control of this.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Brilliant.
So I think it was brilliant. So everyone that's listening, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as to our Spotify and Apple accounts. We'll see you next week. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Dave.
Take care.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Take care.
Ciao, guys.